Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Cilla Si and I am back with another tutorial. To all my subscribers, thank you for always stopping by, and if you're new here, you are welcome. Thank you for stopping by, and make sure you subscribe before you leave. Okay, so I've had this fabric for a while. I remember going to the fabric shop and I saw this fabric and I fell in love with it, but unfortunately it was just a yard. So today I made my decision on what I'm going to use it for. So I've decided on a cowl neck spaghetti strap top. So I thought, why not take my subscribers along and show them how to create a cowl neck top, okay? Hence this tutorial. So if this is something you like to see, come with me. Let me take you through the process. I would like to give a very important note before we get started. First, I started off by reducing the amount of ease I have on the vital part of my pattern to the bare minimum. This step is very important because the cowl neck is designed to be cut along the bias grain of the fabric, which usually allows the fabric to stretch, and most times, depending on the fabric type and texture, it ends up stretching excessively. So I would advise you to get familiar to your bodice, talking about your basic bodice pattern, by knowing the amount of ease you have on the vital part. When I say the vital part, I'm talking about the upper bust, the bust and the waist. And then reduce this ease so as to minimize possible gaping and confusion at the end of your project. So I said confusion because most times you might follow a tutorial and end up with something different, and you'll be wondering, why did ours come out perfectly, why mine came out like this? So the reason for this confusion most times is because you skip important step like this. So right now I'm using my sleeveless block to draft the cowl neck pattern. Now the difference between my sleeveless block and my basic bodice pattern is that I added more ease at the upper bust and at the bust level, and I also added ease at the waist, and I also lowered the armhole depth with about 5/8 of an inch, which reduced my side seam length from 8.5 to 7 7/8 inches. So make sure you put all these factors into consideration and then take the necessary step before you proceed to draft the cowl neck blouse. Right now I have contoured my pattern. For example, my upper bust circumference had 3.5 inches ease. Now it has just 1.5 inches ease around the whole circumference. My bust circumference had 2 inches ease. Now it has no ease at all. My waist still has 1 inch ease right now. Next, you need to decide the depth of the cowl neck. So basically we have the high cowl neck, we have the mid depth cowl neck, we have the deep and the low cowl neck, but I will be going for the low depth cowl neck. This cowl neck usually drapes nicely at either the bust level or just slightly below the bust level. So right now, let's begin. First, I marked the midpoint of my shoulder seam. Next, I came down 1.5 inches from the neckline at center front. And from this point, I'm going to square out a horizontal line to the armhole. When I square out this line to the armhole, it's basically just 1/4 inch above my mid armhole. So you can either choose your mid armhole or maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch above your mid armhole. The next step isn't that important, but this acts as a guide. So I am going to use a compass and draw my bust radius. So the bust radius is simply the measurement from your bust point to your under bust, and using this measurement, draw a circle around the bust point. I like to do this because this controls how deep I draw my armhole, because I don't want to be showing any side boobs. So doing this step ensures that I'm not drawing my armhole very deep, that I will be exposing some side boobs, which is not what I want for this blouse. Okay. Next, before drawing the armhole, I am going to drop down the depth of the armhole with 3/8 of an inch. Comparing this to my basic bodice pattern, this simply means that I have dropped my armhole depth with 1 inch. Now I'm going to use my French curve to draw a curved line from this new point on the armhole to the point on the mid shoulder. So if you really don't know what to do, another way to do this is like I'm coming in from my armhole on this horizontal line with approximately 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to place my ruler on the point on the mid shoulder connecting to the bust point and just draw a line to the horizontal line on the chest. Okay, now I'm going to take the measurement of this line. The length of this line becomes the length of my strap. This length for me is 4 inches. Now I'm going to cut out the sections of the pattern I won't be needing. And the next thing I'm going to do is to transfer the waist dart and the bust dart to center front. To do this, I'm going to draw a line from bust point to center front and then slash this line open and then close the waist dart and the bust dart. So by doing this, I've successfully transferred the bust dart and the waist dart to the bust level line. And then I'll go ahead and cut out the rest part of the pattern. Next, I'm going to draw a line from the tip of the armhole to center front just by the bust level line, like so. And then I'm going to slash this line open. Next, I'm going to take a fresh pattern paper that is long enough to accommodate the length of my blouse plus facing. And then on the top of this pattern paper, I'm going to square a horizontal line and then square also a horizontal line on the bottom and then square across a vertical line on this pattern paper. Now this vertical line is the center front of the pattern, while the bottom line is the hip line. Now from the bottom line, I'm going to mark upward my waist to hip measurement, which is 8.5 inches, and then I'm going to square a horizontal line right across this point. This line is the waistline. Okay, now I'm going to take the cowl neck pattern and place it like so along the vertical line. Now I'm going to call the waistline by center front A. Now you want to position A to touch the vertical line, which is a center front line. At the same time, you want A to touch the new horizontal line, which is our waistline. And you also want B to be touching the vertical line, which is center front line. And you just want C to stay where it is, okay? And don't bother if the side seam of the cowl neck pattern extends below the horizontal line, which is the waistline. It is fine. So now, making sure my pattern doesn't move, I am going to place a mark on C. So C is the tip of the armhole, so I'm going to place a mark there. I'm just measuring them from the top line to the point where C is so that I can properly draw a straight line. Next, I'm going to square a horizontal line right across this point. Now the portion right above this horizontal line is the facing for the cowl neck top. I'm just going to take off this portion because there's really no need for it. Right now, I'm going to position my pattern just the way I stated previously, making sure it is properly aligned the way I've stated previously. And now I'm going to trace the armhole and also trace out the side seam. And then we can continue with the rest part of the blouse. Next, I'm going to mark in from the vertical line, which is center front, my hip divided by 4. So this is going to be a loose fitted garment, so I'm marking my hip divided by 4 without any ease, and then I'm going to use my French curve and connect this point to the point on the waistline. Because I'm going for a curved M line, I'm going to mark upward from the hip line 2 inches. Okay, now I'm going to mark down from the waistline 4.5 inches and then square out a short horizontal line. So this horizontal line is a guideline. Okay, now from the point on the center front line, I'm going to draw out a horizontal line which is going to act as a guide. Then I'm going to mark the midpoint of this line. Using my French curve, I'm going to draw a curved line from the side seam, blending into the horizontal line like so. Next, I'm going to come out from the point on the waistline, 1/2 inch, and then using my French curve, I'm going to properly draw the side seam. Next, I'm going to fold in the top portion just along the horizontal line and then cut out the pattern. Make sure you add your seam allowance when cutting out your pattern, okay? And here guys, we're done with the front piece. So I will be using the front piece to draft the back. Now before using the front piece to draft the back pattern, I would have to refer back to my sleeveless block, the back piece, which I've already contoured. Okay, so like we did on the front piece, I came down 3/8 inch, and from this point I'm going to square out a horizontal line. Next, I'm going to take the measurement of this line in exception to the dot. So this is the upper bust measurement I will be applying on my front pattern to draft the back piece. Okay, so now just go ahead and take this measurement and use it for my front piece to create the back pattern for the cowl neck. Next, I need to take the measurement of the strap. So measuring from the mid shoulder, I'm going to measure down to the new horizontal line just drawn, and this for me is 9 3/8 inches. So to get the total strap that I'll be using for the blouse, all I need to do is to add the back strap to the front strap. Using a fresh pattern paper, I'm going to copy the outline of my front pattern piece. I'm just going to copy it to the armhole like so, and also I'm going to copy it together with the seam allowance. Okay, first I'm going to mark in the seam allowance, and then I'm going to take the measurement which I got from my back piece, measuring from the center back. I'm going to mark that measurement. Next, I'm going to connect this new mark to the rest part of the side seam of the pattern, and then I'll go ahead and cut out this pattern. After cutting out the pattern, I'm going to walk the side seam of the back pattern to the front pattern just to make sure they are equal, and if they are not equal, I'm going to trim off any excess. And here guys, this brings us to the end of making the pattern for this cowl neck top. So I have my pattern ready, and next I'm going to take note of the total length of the strap I need for the top. So all I just need to do is to add the front and the back strap together, and this for me is approximately 13.5 inches. For this cowl neck top, I'll be working with a chiffon fabric, and we all know how challenging chiffon is to work with and how sensitive it is to sew. So I will be using a size 14 needle to sew this top, and for majority of the stitching I will be using a French seam. So the only place I will not use a French seam will be the M, the back neckline, and when sewing the armhole. First, you want to put your fabric on fold, but then you need to fold it along the bias grain. That means you need to fold it on a 45-degree angle, and you need to fold it again like so. Okay, so after folding it, I decided to put a little pleat on the top of my cowl neck. So I just measured 1.5 inches down from the top before placing my pattern. So the top part is going to be the part I'm going to pleat on top of the neckline. When marking the outline of your pattern, you want to mark it with dotted motions. You don't want to, slide your shock on the fabric because it's going to move. Okay, next, from this point, I'm going to mark down about 2.5 inches, and that 2.5 inches is going to be the facing for the neckline. Because of how transparent this chiffon is, I decided to line it with another plain chiffon. So this plain chiffon is going to start 1/2 inch just before the end of the facing for the top. Okay, so I'm going to start cutting the chiffon from this point, and as I was cutting it, I decided to use this plain chiffon to also create a design by creating a kind of 2-layer. So what I'm going to do is to extend the plain chiffon with 2 inches. So this 2 inches is going to be a second layer for the top. Okay, so the floral chiffon will be 2 inches shorter than the plain chiffon. Okay, next I am going to take the floral chiffon and the plain chiffon, join them together at the neckline. Another thing you need to note is that despite me contouring my pattern before cutting, the fabric still ended up stretching excessively. So with what I'm saying, I might have to go back and trim out more from the upper bust of the top. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to pin it on the neckline and take it to the sewing machine to sew. Now I'm cutting the back piece. I'm also going to cut 2 pieces for the back. So the plain is going to be 2 inches longer than the floral part of the back piece as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut out the strap for the top. So for the strap, you also need to cut along the bias grain. Now I've put my fabric on fold, and I'm going to use this rectangular shape pattern that is 1 inch wide to cut out the bias strap. So at this point, I've joined the lining to the neckline of the top, and I have the top turned to the wrong side. Okay, now from the top, I'm going to mark down 1.5 inches, and this is how I'm going to pleat it. So first of all, I place the mark, and then I'm going to pleat the 1.5 inches to the mark. Okay, but before I'm going to sew this, I'm going to slip the strap through the right side and just slip it to this point that I mark before making the fold like this. Okay, so you need to slip in your strap in between the lining and the fabric before you make the pleats. So the strap should be on that 1.5 inches mark before you make the pleats. Okay, right now I'm going to start by sewing my strap, and after sewing, I'm going to turn it to the right side using this strap turning tool. I don't know what it's really called. So I decided not to trim out the seam allowance because I want the strap to look more like a pipe rather than a flat strap. Okay, So after turning the strap, I'm going to go ahead and sew the back pieces together. To sew the back piece together, first I place it on fold, and then I put a notch on the middle of the neckline, and I also did the same for the top layer. Now for the back strap placement, I'm going to measure from the notch and mark my nip to nip measurement divided by 2, which for me is 3 3/4 inches. And I'm going to mark this figure at the other side of the notch as well. So before sewing, you want to have your lining and fabric right side facing right side, and then you're going to slip the strap in between. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew this. And after sewing, I'm going to go ahead and turn it to the right side. Then I'm going to flip the seam allowance toward the lining and do a top stitch just to make the neckline relaxed. So this is what it looks like after doing a top stitch. Now for the front piece, this is the front piece after inserting the strap and after sewing the armhole. This is what it looks like, and I also did a top stitch on the armhole just to make it more relaxed. So what is left now is to join the side seam and then finish the hem of the blouse. But before then, I need to adjust the upper bust due to the excess stretch of the fabric, or because it was caught unbiased. You know, chiffon is one fabric that stretches excessively when you cut it unbiased. So your fabric might not have this much stretch, so do make sure you make your adjustment accordingly. So right now I'm going to refer back to my back pattern piece. I'm going to take the measurement and compare it with what I have right now on the blouse, and then I'm going to make the necessary adjustment. So right now I have 2 inches stretch on 1/2 of the back piece, but I'm not going to remove the whole 2 inches because you want the upper bust not really tight like a bustier, but not loose at the same time to have gaping around. So I am just going to remove 1 inch from the upper bust, and then I'm going to take out 1/2 an inch from the waist and 1/2 inch on the hem. And then I'm going to repeat the same process for the front piece and trim off the excess before joining the side seam of the blouse. And after this, I will then go ahead and finish the hem of the blouse. Now for the side seam, I'm going to use a French seam with a top stitch on the inner layer, while the top layer would just be a French seam without a top stitch. Okay, now because this is a chiffon fabric, you want it to flow. So for this reason, you need to sew lining to lining and fabric to fabric. Okay, my top is ready, so I'm going to put this on and slay 100% for you guys. And this is me on my favorite floral cowl neck spaghetti top at the moment. Let me know what you think about this tutorial. It would be nice to hear your feedback. Please do like this video, share it with your loved ones, share it with everyone else who need this, and remember to subscribe as well if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye bye.